The politics behind this little maneuver are absolutely berserk. Stay tuned.
If you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. We need you here.
Oh, man. Yo, it's Comic Artist Pro Secrets. I'm Ethan Van Sciver, 29-year veteran of the comic book industry. Spent a lot of time working for this company right here, and also knew this guy pretty well, especially in the 1990s. East Coaster guys. Joe Quesada returns to DC. That's the announcement right here from, holy cow, even this Jim Lee and Friends. Wow. So that's what's going on in New York City Comic Con. This is an absolutely incredible announcement, and the reason why goes back to the early 2000s, 2003, when Dan Didio was hired to come in and become the new EIC at DC Comics. Joe Quesada was pretty well situated as the EIC at Marvel, and Joe Quesada did an article. He did an interview for, I think, the New York Post or something like that, in which he compared DC Comics, which was kind of floundering at the time, but not as badly as Marvel. And they said, Joe Quesada said something along the lines of, DC Comics is like a porno star with a 13-inch you-know-what that can't achieve an erection. They've got Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman and don't know what to do with them. Now, this was incredibly infuriating to DC Comics, but especially to Dan Didio, who actually framed that article and hung it in his office. And he swore from that point going forward that as long as Joe Quesada worked for Marvel Comics, DC Comics would never, ever, ever do any kind of crossovers or anything like that. They were just going to ignore Marvel Comics. Whereas in the 90s, they were doing several really kind of high-profile collaborative efforts, like the Amalgam Universe, which combined Marvel characters and DC characters. They kind of split the profits on that. And then Marvel versus DC, which was kind of like a fan vote-in event. That was absurd. Fans got to choose like which character would win in like a matchup that was oftentimes unevenly matched. Wolverine versus Lobo, and Wolverine wins. Come on now, folks. But anyway, Dan Didio stuck to his guns, and as long as Dan Didio was there, DC did not acknowledge Marvel. They were angry with Marvel. They thought they were low class. Jim Lee comes over and joins Dan Didio as co-president, okay? Co-presidents. He kept being elevated. Jim Lee kept being given bigger and bigger jobs because he was such a talented artist and they didn't want him to get away. He was also a really good businessman. So Jim Lee is now... Dan Didio got fired, I think, 2 years ago from DC during the move from the sell-off to AT&T and then the AT&T sell-off to Warner Discovery. For some reason, Dan just was not collaborating with people correctly, I guess the way that they wanted to, and they fired him before they began the first DC Comics Warner Brothers bloodbath. All right, so why is this amazing? This is amazing because Joe Quesada also lost his job at Marvel. Now Joe he's got to have millions in the bank. There is no reason why Joe, who is probably like, I have no idea how old he is. He's got to be 60 right now. There's no reason why he shouldn't just retire. I mean, just take that money, live a nice life in your luxury Manhattan apartment, and just retire. Why would you want to go work for DC Comics? Why would you want to go? And by the way, this looks great. This is Joe's first Batman piece, his new Batman piece. There's no arguing with talent, on the level of Joe Quesada's, whether or not you like him personally or agree with some of the moves he made at Marvel. This is just such a brilliantly executed design. This is a guy who knows how to lay out a cover. This is a guy who knows, he's got a great design sense. And that doesn't automatically come with everybody who can hold a pen. All right, this guy's just fantastic. Why is this interesting? All right, this is interesting because Joe immediately comes back to DC after losing his job and after Dan Didio kind of splits, meaning that Dan Didio seems to be the only person who stood in the way ever of Joe Quesada or Marvel Comics collaborating with DC. This is a big statement. On top of that, his co-president, Jim Lee, welcomes him in with open arms, right in Dan Didio's face, and calls him one of his friends, the Jim Lee and Friends panel. This is the starring announcement. He is Jim Lee is basically saying, hey, I never had a problem with you. That was all Dan Didio, and Dan's gone, and so let's rock and roll. This is a slap in the face. This is this is something else. I didn't realize Dan and Jim were at odds like this. You would think that maybe Jim Lee would carry over the sort of agenda of Dan Didio, who was his partner in presiding over DC Comics for so many years. The answer to that is no. So this is a big kind of FU, in my opinion, to the old DC guard, the one that was actually doing really, really well for so many years at DC, and kind of opens up the suggestion, okay, that perhaps Jim Lee, and I never thought about this never even crossed my mind, Jim Lee might have been more in the Jeff Johns camp when it comes to sympathies at DC Comics, like creatively, editorially, things were always divided between Dan Didio, who was responsible for the New 52, and there are people who really enjoyed what the New 52 was, and then Jeff Johns, who kind of fixed the New 52 when it started to decline with the Rebirth venture. So people kind of align with either one of those. I'm more with Jeff Johns. I didn't know Jim Lee was too. So this is phenomenal, interesting political news coming out of DC. And definitely there's somebody who's looking at this right now who is spitting nails and grinding his teeth, and that person is Dan Didio. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me comments below if you have any questions or anything like that. I'm happy to answer them. Also, please subscribe to this channel and hit the like. Yeah, like I said, always leave me comments. I read all the comments. And back Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet and the Cyberfrog action figures. The links will be in the description below. Great to make a little short video. I'll see you guys again soon with another one. Take care. Hello Indiegogo backers. Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet Second Chance campaign is live on Indiegogo right now, just in time to join the fight for independent comics. We need your support. Back it today. Links in the description below.
The All Caps Comics eBay store is live for all of your non-soy comic book needs. Whether it's Cyberfrog, Starblades, or Rainbow the Brute, ask for it in all caps. Check out the link in the description below. Hey, come follow me on Twitter, @EthanVanSkyver.